She's one of the few heroes in DC who can stop a planet-ending threat and still take time to help someone who's having the worst day of their life. Kara's greatest challenge has never been learning how to be powerful. It's been learning how to belong. And that's why adapting Supergirl has always been harder than people think. Over the last 40 years, two actresses have defined the Girl of Steel for completely different generations. One introduced Supergirl to the world. The other became Supergirl for an entire generation of television fans. So today we are answering one question. Which one is the definitive live-action Supergirl? Welcome to Variant Verdict, where two adaptations enter the arena, but only one leaves as the definitive version. Today's contenders are Helen Slater Supergirl from 1984's Supergirl and Melissa Benoist Supergirl from the CW's Supergirl. They will compete across 7 categories. At the end, one Supergirl will walk away with the crown. Round 1. Comic accuracy. Comic accuracy isn't about counting how many times someone wears the right symbol. It's about asking, if I handed this version to a lifelong Supergirl fan, would they recognize Kara Zor-El? Helen Slater absolutely captures Supergirl's kindness. Her optimism, her sense of wonder, she genuinely feels like someone discovering Earth for the first time. But the script often gives her very little agency. Things happen to Kara, more than because of Kara. That's not entirely Helen's fault, it's the frame around her. Melissa's version feels much closer to modern comics. She's compassionate, stubborn, hopeful, strong without becoming arrogant, and perhaps most importantly, she inspires people, which is exactly what Supergirl is supposed to do. She's not just saving lives, she's giving people reasons to believe tomorrow will be better. That is Supergirl. Helen Slater, 8 points. Melissa Benoist, 9 points. So Melissa takes the early lead, but comic accuracy is only half the battle. Because the first thing audiences notice isn't the personality, it's the cape. And if you are wearing one of the most recognizable symbols in comic book history, every stitch matters. Round 2. Costume and design. Let's address the cape in the room. Supergirl's costume is one of those designs that should be impossible to mess up. Blue suit, red cape, the House of El crest, sometimes a skirt or a pant. Helen Slater's suit is about as comic book accurate as 1984 could realistically make it. Bright blue, flowing red cape, yellow belt, red skirt. It looks like someone reached into the comics and said, yep, we'll take that one. And honestly, there's something charming about how unapologetically comic book it is. It doesn't try to modernize itself. It doesn't add unnecessary armor. It doesn't suddenly decide Krypton invented tactical leather. It just says, I'm Supergirl. Simple, clean, recognizable. Now, does it occasionally look like it wandered off the set of a Saturday morning TV show? Maybe, but that's also part of its charm. Melissa Benoist had a much harder assignment. She wasn't introducing Supergirl, she was modernizing her. And for most of the series, she keeps the classic look intact. Blue suit, red skirt, flowing cape, the House of El crest. Everything fans expect is there. The difference is in the execution, the textured fabric, the stronger cape, the more practical construction. It feels like a suit designed for someone who's actually going to spend all day flying around National City. Then along the line, the show made its biggest design change and replaced the skirt with pants, which some fans loved and some, had some questions. But whether you like the change or not, it became one of the most talked about costume updates in the universe. So which costume wins? Helen Slater's suit is a love letter to the comics. Melissa Benoist's suit is a respectful modernization that largely keeps the classic design while adopting it for television. Both succeed in different ways, but when I think of the definitive comic book image of Supergirl, Helen Slater's costume edges it. Not because Melissa's isn't excellent, but because Helen's captures the timeless simplicity that made the character iconic in the first place. Helen Slater, 9 points. Melissa Benoist, 8.5 points. Round 3. Acting. Here's a category that's dangerously easy to judge unfairly because one actress had a single movie, the other has 6 seasons. That's like comparing someone who ran a marathon to someone who had to run 6 marathons. While the writers occasionally change the route halfway through. So instead of asking who had more great moments, let's ask a better question. Who became Kara Zor-El? Helen Slater walks into this movie with an impossible assignment. Follow Christopher Reeves' Superman. That's pressure. And yet, she never tries to imitate him. She gives Kara her own identity. She's playful, curious, gentle. You genuinely believe she's seeing it with fresh eyes, even when the movie gets, 1984. She never stops believing in the world she's in. That's harder than it sounds. Because convincing an audience is easy, but convincing yourself first, that's the tricky part. Melissa Benoist had a completely different challenge. She didn't have to introduce Supergirl, she had to keep audiences invested in her for 6 years, and somehow she did. Whether Kara was saving civilians, comforting friends, standing up to villains, or delivering one of those speeches that somehow make you want to recycle more. Melissa sold every version of the character. The biggest compliment I can give her is this: when Melissa smiles, you believe Kara genuinely enjoys being a hero, and that's surprisingly rare. Helen made us believe Supergirl could work. Melissa made us forget she was acting. Winner: Melissa Benoist. Helen Slater, 11 points. Melissa, 14 points. Round 4. Writing. Now we get to the category where actors stop getting all the blame, because no matter how talented someone is, they can't perform scenes that don't exist. Writing is where heroes become legends, memes.
Kal-El, no!
Helen's Supergirl suffers from a problem that has haunted superhero movies since the beginning. The story doesn't always know what to do with its hero. Instead of driving the plot, Kara often reacts to it. Things happen around her. Villains make plans. Supporting characters make decisions. And Supergirl spends large portions of the movie trying to catch up. She's like the designated driver in someone else's adventure. That doesn't mean the character is bad. It means the script doesn't trust her enough to lead. Melissa's Kara gets the exact opposite treatment. Sometimes, the writers trust her so much, they give her the emotional baggage of 5 different TV shows. She loses people, questions herself, leads teams, faces world-ending threats, balances friendships, family, journalism, alien politics, and somehow still has time to be the nicest person in National City. Now, were all 6 seasons perfectly written? Absolutely not. Some storylines felt like they escaped from the Phantom Zone without supervision. But when the show focused on Kara herself, it understood something essential. Supergirl isn't inspiring because she's invisible. She's inspiring because she chooses kindness when power would make cruelty easier. And that's exactly who Kara should be. One script introduced Supergirl, the other explored her. That makes all the difference. Winner: Melissa Benoist. Helen Slater, 8 points. Melissa, 14 points. Round 5. Heroism and compassion. Here's something I think superhero fans forget. Being a hero isn't the same thing as beating the bad guy. Any Kryptonian can punch through a wall. Not every Kryptonian can inspire hope. That's what separates Supergirl from almost everyone else. Her greatest strength has never been in her heat vision. It's her heart. So let's ask the question: which Supergirl actually makes you believe the symbol on her chest means hope? One of the things Helen Slater gets right almost immediately is kindness. She's never presented as someone who enjoys fighting. She isn't chasing glory. She isn't trying to prove she's stronger than anyone. She simply sees people who need help and helps them. There's a sincerity to her performance that feels almost timeless. She smiles often, listens, comforts. Even in the movie that sometimes loses its way, Helen never loses sight of who Kara is supposed to be. She reminds you that being Supergirl isn't about looking powerful. It's about making other people feel safe. Melissa Benoist had a different challenge. Over 6 seasons, she had to carry the emotional weight of an entire television universe. Friends betrayed her, family secrets came to light, the world questioned her, villains tested her, and through all of it, the one thing that really changed was her belief in people. Melissa's Kara never gives up on redemption, even when someone has every reason to become an enemy. Her first instinct is still to save them, but because kindness is often harder than violence, and Melissa understands that. There are moments when Kara could end a fight with force. Instead, she chooses compassion. Those moments define the character far more than any laser beam ever could. Now, this is the closest category in today's matchup. Helen captures Supergirl's innocence beautifully. Melissa captures her maturity. One represents the beginning of Kara's journey, and the other shows us who Kara becomes. By the narrowest of margins, this round goes to Melissa Benoist. Helen Slater, 9 points. Melissa Benoist, 10 points. Round 6, story impact. Now this is the category that usually decides everything, because here's the question: if you remove this version of Supergirl, what happens? Does the story still work, or does everything fall apart? Let's start with Helen. Without Supergirl, well, there isn't much of a movie, even though she's the center of almost every major event. The story often feels like it's happening around here. But here's the catch. Characters appear, problems emerge, magic happens, villains make plans, and Kara spends a surprising amount of the movie reacting instead of driving the narrative. That's not Helen's fault. She gives everything she has, but the screenplay rarely lets Supergirl shape the story in the way Superman usually does. She's the protagonist, without always feeling like the engine of the plot. Now, remove Melissa Benoist from the Arrowverse. Suddenly, National City loses its protector. The DEO changes completely. The Super Friends don't exist as we know them. Lex Luthor's story changes. Lena Luthor's story changes. The crossovers change. The emotional center of an entire series disappears. Whether you loved every season or not, one thing is undeniable. The Arrowverse didn't simply feature Supergirl. It was built around Kara Danvers. Her decisions changed the people around her. She inspired heroes, redeemed villains, built friendships, and became one of the defining faces of DC television. That's impact. Now, Helen Slater gave audiences their first live-action Supergirl. Melissa Benoist gave an entire generation their Supergirl. History remembers both, but influence belongs to Melissa. Helen Slater, 8 points. Melissa Benoist, 10 points. Final round, powers and competence. Let's clear something out before the comments do. This isn't about who has the bigger explosion. Because if your entire argument is, well, this Superman punched harder, congratulations, you've accidentally reviewed Dragon Ball Z instead. Being Supergirl isn't just about having powers, it's about knowing how to use them. Strength, speed, flight, heat vision, freeze breath, super hearing, but more importantly, judgment. Because anyone can throw a punch, not everyone knows when not to. Helen's Supergirl feels magical, and I mean that literally. The 1984 film leans into a whimsical interpretation of Kryptonian abilities. She flies gracefully, uses her powers creatively, moves with elegance rather than aggression. There's almost a fairy tale quality to the way she solves problems. It's charming, very much a product of its era, but it's also limited. The visual effects can only do so much. Some action scenes lack weight. You never doubt that she's powerful, but you don't always feel it. Now, Melissa Benoist had one enormous advantage: modern visual effects, and the show makes good use of them. When Kara flies, it feels fast. When she fights, there's impact. When she catches a crashing aircraft, you believe it. More importantly, Melissa's Supergirl actually fights like someone who spent years learning restraint. Doesn't just overpower every villain, she adapts, tests civilians first, uses her environment, and thinks through the fight instead of simply ending it. And perhaps my favorite detail, she always feels like she's trying to save everyone, even the person trying to punch her through a building. Now, Helen's powers captured the wonder of comic books. Melissa's powers captured the skill of modern superhero. One made you smile, the other made you believe. And for powers and competence, the edge goes to Melissa Benoist. Helen Slater, 8 points. Melissa Benoist, 9 points. At this point, both Supergirls have proven they deserve the keep. But powers alone don't define their legacy, because when the dust settles, the villains are defeated, the credits begin to roll. There's one final question left to answer. Which Supergirl left the bigger mark on the story and on the people watching it? After going through all the categories, Helen Slater, 61 points. Melissa Benoist, 74.5 points. The winner, Melissa Benoist Supergirl. Melissa Benoist simply delivers the more complete version of Kara Zor-El, and that earns her the crown. But that's just my verdict. Now it's your turn. Does Helen Slater deserve more credit? Or did I get this one exactly right? Put your scores in the comments. But the best part of Variant Verdict isn't the winner, it's the debate that comes after. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and let me know which two versions of a character should enter the arena next. Till then, every great character has more than one face. Only one can be the definitive adaptation.
General, would you care to step outside?